This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly podcast. My name is Billy Atwell. I'm the co-host for this episode, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at the Diocese. I'm here with our host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, welcome.
Well, thank you, Billy. This is very exciting, our first podcast together.
Yes, this is exciting. So what made you want to specifically begin a podcast? There's lots of media. We're engaging in different ones. Why did you want to do this?
Well, as I say often, I think that as a church, we should use every tool possible to get out the good news of the gospel, the good news of all the great ministries occurring here in the diocese, the good news of the truth that we can bring out into the public arena. And we use as many of these social media tools and resources possible. Podcasts is also effective, and I hear that for many who spend time in traffic, podcasts is also a way of engaging with our parishioners.
Yeah, definitely. When you're sitting in the car for 45 minutes or an hour or more for a lot of folks, it's a very you're a captive audience, and you're sometimes looking for things to listen to. So hopefully we'll be able to provide things of value here. And in addition to specific interviews with you and with other guests, we'll be posting homilies and speeches, different messages within this podcast. So for those who are obviously listening to it for the first time, know that that's kind of what's coming down the road. If Bishop Burbidge has found it important enough that we recorded it, then we are going to provide this to you in this platform of the podcast, available on different platforms such as iTunes. We're going to be on Stitcher and Google Play and so on. Bishop, I want to go back to actually the beginning, your first day in the Diocese of Arlington. I'm curious about your first impressions, and also the fact that your first day maybe was a signal about some of the things that were most important to you. There were a few things that you did that day. One was you had lunch at Christ House, and you visited the Poor Clares, one of our Catholic schools, and you also visited with the Catholic Charities staff and other staff here in the diocese. Was that a signal? Were you setting a signal, or was it just a response to the first day and you wanted to get right involved?
Yeah, well, first of all, upon learning I was coming to the Diocese of Arlington, I considered myself truly blessed because I knew what a faith-filled and vibrant diocese that we have, and I've seen that up close now after this past year. Yeah, I think so. I think that first day was a way of not only for me to quickly learn about our some important ministries in our diocese, but also to say, yeah, these will be some of my priorities. And first, as you said, my first meal in the Diocese of Arlington was at Christ House with our brothers and sisters who are poor and in need and served by so many wonderful volunteers. So that's something that I of course has to be lived out in my ministry and in all of our lives. I certainly thought it was very important to go to the Poor Clares, that we have sisters, nuns in our diocese who are dedicated to solely praying for the church. And I went to them saying, please, may I entrust my ministry to your prayers, and asking the Blessed Mother to watch over me and our Lord to guide me. It was very important for me to get to one of our schools. I went to a high school and a grade school that day, because Catholic education and Catholic schools are, to me, very important and great gifts in our diocese. I also went to visit our retired priests, recognizing that how blessed we are in this diocese to have so many wonderful priests who have served faithfully, continue to serve faithfully, who become my closest collaborators to show the care that I want to have for our priests. So, that was the first day, and in this past year, those kind of visits and engaging, with priests and lay faithful, our brothers and sisters in need, is certainly what I hope to do each and every day.
Very good. Now, you've been so active over the past year, not just in terms of major diocesan events that we've had. More recently we've had the Life is Very Good rally and Mass. We had the March for Life and a lot of big events. But you visited so many parishes, so many schools and different offices around the diocese. What are some of the first impressions you've had? It's been just past a year now. What are some of the greatest takeaways you've had from all those visits?
Well, first of all, just how gracious everyone has been here in the Diocese of Arlington to welcome me as their new bishop, beginning with my brother priests who inspire me. through their faithful service, their dedication, the way they live their priestly lives. Every single parish that I've been to in school, I've been just welcomed with open arms. And that means a lot. It means a great deal. And it certainly fills me with zeal and enthusiasm. So grateful to everyone throughout our diocese. And to see, I always love when I go to a parish to pick up the parish bulletin. And I just love seeing all the ministries within one parish in service of those in need and dedicated to teaching and evangelizing. Absolutely incredible.
When you've undoubtedly in any new role, there are challenges. How have you relied on Bishop Laverty and not only his prayers but his counsel, having been your predecessor here?
Well, yes, we are ever deeply grateful to Bishop Laverty for the solid foundation in which he has situated our diocese, along with the help and support of so many people. And so we want to build upon that, which is what he wants us to do, to continue the good work. And so since Bishop Laverty has certainly a history, great knowledge and love of the diocese, and he has been a longtime friend, when there's questions to be asked or advice to be sought, how blessed am I that I have my predecessor right here in my midst, and I can tap into his wisdom and guidance. And he is so supportive. Never takes the initiative to offer, but always responds when asked.
That's very good. Looking ahead, you've got a lot of opportunities. What do you see as kind of the greatest opportunity for you as a bishop? So, for those who are listening, a bishop's ministry, there's like three main components to it. There's a teaching component, there's a governing component, and a sanctifying component. What do you see as the kind of the most important things for you as you lead into this next year?
So again, I'm blessed. I think what we are doing well. But there's always opportunity to do even better. So I don't feel challenged that I have to come up with this new program and come up with something that we never thought of. We have some great things in place. So my job is to, with the help of the wisdom I gain from others, is to say, well, how can we expand upon this? For example, Catholic Charities. Our Catholic Charities is known nationally for the care it gives, for providing people with the basic necessities of life, for helping those who are in prison and those who come out of prison, helping the migrants and refugees, providing counseling, even locally on our parish scenes. So how can we increase our services to the most people possible? Same thing with our schools. How can we make schools more affordable to a more diverse population? How can we manage the growth of our parishes with the personnel that we have? And we're blessed with a great number of seminarians, but we need more priests too. So how can we increase our vocations effort? And what I hear a lot when I'm out in the parishes from the lay faithful is this desire to help. They understand and they recognize that through their baptism, they're called to participate in the teaching and the sanctifying ministry of the bishop. And they want to help. They want to be catechists. They want to be evangelists. They want to do anything they can to share the good news of the gospel with others. But what they're saying is, but we have to become better equipped. We have the desire, but we need the formation. We need the tools. And so I think that's an area that I really want to give great attention to.
Very good. You had mentioned Catholic schools. So there's a theme. So we're in Catholic Schools Week. Nationally, there's Catholic Schools Week going on. Talk a little bit about the theme and your focus for this
right.
week.
So we celebrate Catholic Schools Week every year. Well, we celebrate Catholic schools every day.
Right.
But there's one week where its attention is highlighted just to lift up the great work of our Catholic schools. And I'm so grateful to our Catholic educators who assist our parents in the formation and education of their children. I've been to our schools, and I have no worry. They're strong in academic performance, and strong, most especially, what makes me proud is Catholic identity. Our children love their faith. They're learning their faith. They love to celebrate their faith. So I want to make this gift, as available to as many people as possible. So every year they give us a theme. I think it comes from one of the Catholic Education Associations. And to be honest, I'm always wrestling with that theme because I'm never actually a wonderful fan of the theme that we inherit. So this year the theme is learn and serve and lead and succeed.
That's not cutting it for you?
It's not cutting it for me. It's not cutting it for me. They're all good terms, but that could apply to any school, anywhere. Right. And our Catholic schools are so much more than that. So it's during my homilies during Catholic Schools Week, I told the students, well, you know what, here in the Catholic Diocese of Arlington, we're going to use words that describe who we are and what we do. So I'm going to add a word to each one. So it's funny, I ask them as I visit the classrooms, they all remember, so this is good. So I tell them, no, first word is learn. We're going to add the word Jesus. We learn Jesus. That's why our Catholic schools exist, to learn about the Lord, to learn about our faith, to learn about how he teaches us to love God and to love one another. We're going to serve with forgiveness, imitating Christ. That ability is one of the most precious gifts that we give to those we serve is that ability to forgive if we're ever disappointed or hurt and allow them to begin anew. And we're going to lead, but we're going to lead with courage, the courage of the apostles, the courage of the prophets and the martyrs who not only had knowledge of the faith, they practice it no matter the cost. And the word that I really wanted to modify with this theme is succeed, because our young people hear that word a lot. And usually what the air they breathe is, yes, succeed no matter what. And do whatever it takes to get ahead. Make sure you get the highest grades, whatever the cost. Make sure you get the best titles, and make sure you get the best honors, and no matter what costs. And I tell our students, no, succeed. Here's what you have to succeed in spiritually. You have to succeed in love of God and neighbor, because in the end, that's all that God's going to ask us. Did you love God, and did you love one another? And that's where I want you to succeed. And hopefully our wonderful parents, our catechists, our Catholic schools are helping our young people in a very challenging world to succeed spiritually.
It would make sense, too, why you're so passionate about Catholic education, because that's been a big part of your formation as a priest. And then I know, was that your first assignment, was to a school?
No, my first assignment was to a parish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I was asked it's funny, I always say I was asked if I wanted to teach high school by one of the priests in the chancery. And I said, no. I said, thanks for asking. I really don't want to. And about 3 weeks later, I got a letter saying, you've been assigned to teach high school. So
you should have known.
Why did you ask? Right. But in God's plan, it turned out to be a deep love of mine. And I've been very committed to Catholic education throughout my priesthood.
And then obviously in seminary also.
In seminary as a rector.
Yeah, teaching at seminary.
Yeah.
I hear you dabble in football. You might be an Eagles fan. Is this correct?
Did you hear that?
I've heard this somewhere
we're
on the
taping this
street.
podcast a week before the Super Bowl, and so I think I've kind of been transparent on this issue.
Yeah, I thought I heard you calling it Holy Week this week, but I don't.
No, I didn't go that far. I have to admit. But I was sharing with some of the students recently that I grew up in Philadelphia, and my father and I had season tickets to the Eagles for 20 years. So that's sitting through a lot of bad seasons now. Now that we're in the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, you can see why there's some enthusiasm. But Billy, what I was saying to the students is I probably could tell you very little about any of those games. The score, or the defense, or the offense. But you know what I remember? It's something I did with my dad. It was something very special. It was something that he and I had. That was our time together. That I've never forgotten. And I think even now as the Eagles are in focus in Super Bowl, I can't help but thinking about my father, and the beautiful memories that we have and I treasure. And, certainly encourage our young men and women out there to do the same, to really do everything possible, and same thing with our parents, to treasure this time that you have together, to create those memories and do those things that will be lasting, because they become great gifts as life moves on.
Because I'm sure it was a sacrifice for your dad to do that. I'm sure not every year was easy to purchase the tickets.
Oh, right.
And to get to the games, make the time for it. I'm sure there was other things that were on his schedule that he needed to do, but he made time for that with you. I'm sure that meant a lot to you.
You know, and the ride in the car to the game and enjoying each other, the ride home, just that one-on-one time was very special.
Very good. One of the unique dynamics of your ministry here is we're right outside of Washington, D.C. It seems like, especially lately, the eyes of the world are in Washington, and a lot of folks that work there live in our diocese, and just being so close to the action, so to speak, it's hard not to pay close attention to what's happening. Does that impact your ministry at all in what you do as a bishop?
I think it does. I mean, it's amazing to me. When I sit in my office here in Arlington, I can actually see the Capitol building, and I think that's a reminder that, the call that we all receive to bring our faith and the truth that we know we have into the public arena. I know that we are very blessed here in our diocese to have so many people, as you mentioned, who work in our nation's capital and are positions of influence. And so going back to what I said earlier, what are we doing to equip these people who have so much influence to shape the discourse, to shape the discussions with the truth that we have, namely the sacredness of all human life, the dignity of all human persons, the care for God's creation and one another. And so I feel a real obligation to make sure that we're providing the resources in the formation of the faith that we need to do, and to encourage our people. We breathe the air of that DC politics, and as I think most people would acknowledge right now, it's pretty harsh, and there's so much division, and we have an obligation not to fall into that trap or follow that path. But we have to be the people who give an example of no matter what we agree upon or what we don't agree upon, we speak to each other with a dignity, with a respect that is so essential, and that we try our best not to foster division. We don't compromise who we are. We don't compromise what we believe, but to try in any way possible to see how can we live peacefully and in unity. So, I think there's a great obligation just because of where we are situated as a diocese.
We got a good bit of feedback from a homily you gave recently on the topic of anxiety. If you would, just for folks, if you would recall some of what you had delivered in that homily, because it obviously had an impact on some folks.
Yeah, it was the second reading from St. Paul a Sunday or two ago, where he says, "I should like you to be free of anxieties." And it always, when I hear that line, I ask the question, as I'm sure others do, how can you be free of anxieties? And you sometimes ask that question when you think of the countless demands and obligations that are thrown at you, anyone, each day, as you deal with some personal or maybe some family struggles or situations, as you carry a cross that might be heavy at this particular time in your life, or as you think about some concerns about the future that people may have. And people may say, well, in light of all that, how is it possible to be freed from all anxieties? And I mentioned it, one of my favorite saints, St. Francis de Sales, used to say, the past does not concern me because I entrust it to God's infinite mercy. The future does not concern me because I entrust it to his divine providence. And the present doesn't concern me because I entrust it to his amazing graces. And I said, do you ever notice that when do we feel the most anxious? When do we feel the most stress? It's when we're disconnected with God. It's when we embrace and it all depends on me attitude. Well, if we think that and we act like that, of course we're going to have anxiety and stress. Now, I'm not talking as a medical expert. I'm not talking as a psychologist, and we understand that there are conditions where that expertise is needed.
Right.
I'm talking spiritually.
Right.
And then what I say is then ultimately, here's one of the ways you can be freed from anxiety. is you have to pray. You know, if you start off the day and you don't pray and you just jump on the treadmill of life at its fast pace, it's going to be very stressful. If you go home at the end of the day and you work after working so hard and trying to accomplish so much, and you just go to bed and you just try to fall asleep without praying, you're going to be restless. Instead of entrusting, God, I did my best today. Ultimately, it's yours, Lord. It's all yours. You know, I gave you my best, and where I failed, forgive me and help me to do even better tomorrow. I think you can sleep peacefully there. And, you know, we prayed every Mass. I love this. Right after the Our Father, we say that prayer, Lord, keep us safe from all distress. Keep us safe from all distress. And so whenever people are feeling anxiety and stressfulness, I would just suggest just repeat a prayer of the apostles. Just say it quickly, a couple times. Lord, increase my faith. Increase my faith. You know, and what we're saying there, to rely on your infinite mercy, your divine providence, and your amazing grace.
Is that something you have to employ a lot in your own ministry? Because obviously there's a lot of stresses within the life of a bishop. There's a lot of demands on you. Is that something that you find yourself relying on pretty regularly?
Absolutely, I do, because it's a constant reminder, you know, that without relying on God, remember, it doesn't all depend on me. So I do. I constantly have to remind myself of that. And I did also say in that homily, it is also, when we talk about, you know, stress, is we have to look at our own relationships too. Spouses, parents, children, students, priests. Are we in any way, by our actions and our unrealistic demands or whatever, are we helping to cause some stress in the lives of those we love? Or are we helping to alleviate it by walking with them and supporting them and being mutually, you know, encouraging? So I think we have to look at that. Like, I hope my staff doesn't say this, you know. I don't want to be a source of stress. I want to be someone who helps to alleviate that by walking together.
Very good. That's all I have. Is there anything else for this first podcast? It's only the first one, so I'm sure you've got more to come. But
no, as you mentioned, we would like to use this podcast for homilies and messages and updates like that, and hope we'll be seeking some feedback on what will be most helpful and productive. So be patient with us, everyone. This is only our first podcast, and we'll continue to try to stay in communications with you. And hopefully, who are listening, if we could just make that promise to pray for one another. And I certainly, is my prayer for all who are listening, that they will know the strength and the peace and the serenity that only God can give, and to encourage all of you, dear friends, to walk humbly with your God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes of this show on iTunes, Google Play, and Libsyn. You can also follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer spiritual reflections every morning on the gospel, and also share pictures and updates of what is going on here in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, inspirational content, and more by going to arlingtondiocese.org and subscribe for our e-newsletter.